So what we've got going on in the shop today, working a little overtime. It's the weekend, but they are in need of these signs. And as you can see, we've got a breakdown. These are commercial sign frames. This is one of those jobs. So I talk a lot about sub work from other companies. This is one of them. We've been doing work for this company for a couple months now, doing nothing but sign frames. They are a huge sign manufacturing company, and this is what they do. So they don't do a lot of steel. Most of what they do, probably 75, 80, 90% of what they do is aluminum. And so they just don't have the manpower to do steel frames. And so they contacted us, and we were glad to oblige and give them a quote. And we've been working together ever since. This is now the third or fourth set of frames we've done. And you can see here, basically what we're going to be making is just this perimeter frame. It's out of 1-inch square tubing. It's about 15 3/4. I don't have that number. I got to get that off my email. 15 3/4, I think, is the outside dimension. So what they do, they give us a drawing, but they also give us this little jig because they've actually got some of the sheet metal already made. So what they do is they try to ensure that the sheet metal that they're making fits the frame that we're building. So you can see they basically mocked one up, and then we make a frame out of this. So what we'll do is I'll measure in between. You can see where the joints were, 22.5 degrees on each one of these to make that 45. There's a 7-inch piece here. That's what I measured it to be. Could be a little different, so I'll measure each piece. So it's 7 inches, so you'll have 4 of those. You got 4 corners, and then these pieces in between, because the drawing doesn't give you that exact dimension. It's not broken down into the cuts. It just gives you outside dimension. Should be pretty close. The dimension from this corner to that corner should be 51 inches. So what I'll do is I'll just start with that dimension, and we'll modify as needed. I'll get the first one done. I'll write notes over here on the drawing, and then everyone after that will be cut to those dimensions. So we've got 16 of these frames to build. You'll have a perimeter frame, is what I call it, the 1-inch square tubing. Then you'll have another one that stacks on top, 15.5 inches thick. So it's basically a 3-dimensional box. This one is, I think it's 61 by 61 if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 5'1" by 5'1" is the outside dimension, so it's a completely square box. Tacked, and I'll put a couple more clamps on just to hold it. Don't think it's going anywhere. It's just in this jig, and I've got 4 clamps already. I just want to make sure it doesn't pull anything. All right, so fast forward a little bit. I don't want to bore you with cutting, and we still got quite a bit more to do. We have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We got about 22 out of 32. We got 10 more frames to go, so that should be 3, 6. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 frames to go. I can't count. Anyway, this is the pieces we cut for the frames that you saw me doing here, and we've got well over halfway on those. And then now what we're getting ready to do is look at the drawing, get our dimensions for where our cross braces go, and then we'll start taking 2 of these frames. So here's some of them, nice and cleaned up on the edges. And what we'll do is, so you'll have 2 of these frames. We'll make one whole 3-dimensional frame. So it's basically a big box. 61 by 61 by 15 3/4. And so what we did, I cut my inside pieces, since it's 1-inch square tubing on each side. These pieces will be 13 3/4. Then the outside dimension will be 15 3/4. So this is right, just a little over half. Takes 224 pieces. I think it's 14. I think it was 14 of these on each frame, and there's 16 frames. So I did about 125 here, and so I got 100 more to cut. But I want to go ahead and get one of these frames together. So let's see if we can do that and get it going. What I'm doing is putting the uprights, we'll call them uprights. We'll call these uprights, and what I'm doing is fill it up and they bring them back because the square tube doesn't. All I'm doing is tightening the opposite corners a little bit off. Last 3 on. And then one moment of truth. What I'm doing is just using this 90-degree magnet just to hold it. To square it that way. And what I need here is I just need to make sure I've got 4 inches matching frame just slightly over, because there's a 4-inch piece of square tubing straight through here and up in between those other 2 on the other end. And that's the post that actually holds the sign in place. I think I need to replace my magnet. Make sure I've got enough room for them to slide that in and off. using the magnet to hold it square this way. And now I've got my speed square. I've got this flat on the table. This is not a precision ground table, but I know it's flat. So the reason I'm squaring off the table is because I know the frames are all exactly the same because they're in a jig. So I know if I square these off the table, theoretically, it should, the other frame should sit right on top of it. It may be off here or there, but we should be pretty dang close. So square. Moment of truth. Like I said, we should be really close. My thing is I want all of these just square. I don't want them crooked and in different places. When you build something and you're building multiple, you want to be sure everything looks the same. So if this one is off just a little bit, you just want to build the rest of them like that. If you start the first one and set the precedence, then the rest of them can all be identical. Really, really close. Like this one's just in just a smidgen. What I can do is just pull that out, but I gotta find a good place to start tacking. So like this one lines up really good where it's supposed to. This one does too, other than just needs to go out. So I'll probably tack them first and then work my way in one direction. For curiosity, it's pretty dang close. It's off about a 16th, so I can fudge it that way just a hair. I'll go ahead and tack it. I know it lines up in my corner inside where I want it. Double check our dimensions. Should be 15 3/4. It is 15 3/4 exactly. Just a 16 shot there. So let's weld her up. And what I'll do is kind of as I go along, I think I'm actually going to do this side here. This side pretty much tacked. Pull it as needed. Once again, double checking here. 4 and an 8. 4 and an 8. What I'm doing here is I know where the seam or the corner is supposed to line up on the inside of this bend here, so I just make sure it lines up there. This one I got to pull out just a little bit. Same thing on this one. Good. bit. There you go. So now that's all tacked up. We'll go through. I'll probably jump around. I don't like to weld all of that at one time and all of this, so I'll probably do one or two here. I'll come to this side and I'll jump back and forth, and I'll probably make like 2 big circles or something, and I think that should be good. It's got enough material there and enough time in between. That's I think that'll work. Just making sure none of them are like twisted, not square. Looks good. Now we've only got 16 more to do. Okay, so this is the first batch. Got 16 of these to build, and this is the first 5. They wanted some to pick up today because they're behind. That's why they're subbing out work to us, because they are behind on signs, and they really don't have welders that do steel. Like I said, most of what they do is aluminum frames, so they sub this out to us. We do aluminum as well, but they've got crews to do that, so sub this out to us, and we don't mind at all. Like I've said many times before, that's kind of how I started my business, with other welding companies subbing out work, just overflow stuff, and we still do it from time to time and have our own jobs as well, so it's all income. But anyway, made pretty quick work of this. Josh and I teamed up on this morning to knock these out. Had them pretty much done at lunchtime, and of course everything was cut. These frames were made. You saw me, I was tacking them together, making them the boxes, and then hand them over to him on the other side of the table. He would weld everything up, and then while he was doing that, I went over on the saw and cut out all the 2x1.5 X bracing, I'll call it. So that's these pieces here. So these frames are engineered for a certain wind load. These actually go on a bank, I believe. There's a bunch of bank signs, but they're engineered, I'm pretty sure they're 150 mile an hour wind rated. They had plans for two different signs, 115 mile an hour and 150, and they decided to build them all 150, so everything was the same. And honestly, it wasn't that much more expensive, so just maybe some more bracing, different size bracing, so forth. But everything is 1x1 by 1/8 square, 2 by 1.5 angle on the cross brace, and then these pieces here, actually what it is, there's 4, there's 2 on each side, so you'll have your post that comes up here that actually holds the sign in place, and then what you see here, this is 1 by 1 by 1/8 angle, and then it's just some clips holding that on because it's offset here. So you've got one here, and then you've got one at the top. They have aluminum bars that they actually bolt, little bitty, I think 1/2 inch square aluminum pieces, and that's what holds the lights for the ones that are backlit. So they'll actually have lights in here. They get wired and have tube lights, I think is what they use, probably LED now. But so here's the first 5. They're done, ready to go. Cleaned them up, wire wheeled them, went over them with flap wheel, and just deburred everything, make sure there's no sharp edges, especially on the outside. This is all going to get wrapped. So pretty much what they do, they have everything, they break colored sheet metal, and it comes over the sides, and they make like a trim piece that goes all the way around that and probably breaks over the side, and then the face of it will be probably a different color. This is one color, inside will be a different color with the logo. So there you go, first 5. We got 11 more to do, and we've got quite a bit of this stuff already cut. So we've got here, this is the frames and the little pieces in the bucket here. All of those are done. We've got about 100 of these left to cut, and then we've got pretty much, I think, all of our X bracing and our 1x1. I've still got to cut all that for the other 11 frames, but shouldn't take too long. I'll knock that out today, and that way it's all ready to go, and see if we can knock out another 5 tomorrow. But anyway, hope you guys have an awesome day. As you can see, our shop's cleaned up a little bit from our catastrophe a few weeks ago, the plasma cutting extravaganza. If you did not see that, go back and watch it. 480 feet of CNC, or not CNC, hand plasma cutting with that machine there, the Hypertherm 65. But anyway, just wanted to share this with you. Hope you guys picked up some tips and tricks here, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you have not, go ahead and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Have a great day.